Ngayong gabi, isang aplikante sa pagkasenador ang haharap sa matinding job interview. Ako si Luchi Cruz-Valdes at ang aplikante sa gabing ito ay si
Antonio Butch Valdes. Ipinanganak noong January 20, 1947 sa Maynila. Nagtapos ng kursong Liberal Arts and Commerce, major in Political Science and Accounting sa De La Salle University, Manila. May master's degree sa management mula sa Asian Institute of Management. Certified Public Accountant at Ekonomista. Naging Undersecretary ng nooy Department of Education, Culture and Sports at Honorary Consul ng Pilipinas sa Portugal. Kabilang din siya sa mga nagtatag ng Chamber of Filipino Entrepreneurs at Citizen National Guard.
Okay, magandang gabi po sa inyo, Professor Butch Valdes.
Magandang gabi din.
Remotely related by affinity.
That's right.
Para for full disclosure. Okay, sa unang round po ng ating tanungan, kayo po ay bubunot ng tanong sa aming munting fishbowl. Babasahin ko po. At may 1 minuto po kayo para sagutin. Unang tanong, kumbinsihin niyo po ang mga botante kung bakit kanila dapat iboto.
Sa paglagay ko po namin, kami po dito sa KDP, 7 po kami tumatakbong pang Senado. Kinakailangan na po magkaroon ng alternatibo ang taong bayan dito sa mga nakikita natin tumatakbong pang senador at mga partidong sumasalo dito sa mga kandidato nila. Ang partido po namin ay may plataforma pang gobyerno, no? At meron po kaming three issues that we want to bring dito sa ating mga mamamayan. Ang nakikita po namin sa kabila, ang mga kalaban namin, itong mga datihan ng politiko, mga traditional politicians and traditional parties, wala po akong nakikitang plataforma ng partido at para bagang kanya-kanya silang meron sariling paningin. At hindi nila na-realize that they contradict each other in terms of what their ideas are. Pero iisa lang silang partido.
Okay, follow up po. Unang-una, ano ba yung KDP at ano yung 3 issue na sinasabi niyong meron kayo?
KDP stands for Katipunan and Demokratikong Pilipino. 3 po kaming main issues na gusto namin ilabas sa kampanya. Number 1 has to do with sovereignty. It's about the electoral fraud of the tandem of COMELEC and Smartmatic. Pero very important po dito, that's why it's a sovereignty issue. Dahil po ang COMELEC, according to our saligang batas, ay siya lang dapat hawak ng eleksyon at pinagbabawalan siya i-delegate any part of it to another. Much worse to a foreign corporation.
Okay, nako, naubos po ang oras ninyo, pero babalikan po natin yan mamaya sa ikalawang round. But in the meantime, maybe you can get another question. Yan, okay. Pero okay lang po. Okay, pangalawa. Ano pong meron kayo na walang iba pang mga tumatakbo sa pagkasenado? So, pwede niyong i-follow up yun.
Ito po ito pong 3 main issues. Kami lahat ang nagtutulak nito. Yung sinabi ko na yun dito.
Yes.
Pero yung pangalawa po dyan, itong Dengvaksha issue. Justice, no? Malaki pong, this is a heinous crime. Probably the worst heinous crime ever committed on our people. Over 1,000 are dead. 25,000 are in the hospital suffering from the side effects. A lot of them are permanently blind children. No? At hanggang ngayon, wala pa pong nakukulong, wala pa pong nalilitis. Kinakailangan itulak ito. Pangatlo po, we are paying the highest electricity rates in the world. No? In the world. And we are paying double that of the ordinary citizen in the United States. This is because of the APIRA law. The APIRA law is an onerous and immoral law which has to be reviewed and most probably repealed. This is what we're going to bring to the people. And kung mapasok po kami sa Senado, yan po ang aming itutulak. Nagagawa kami ng mga paraan at isa sa batas namin ang kinakailangan isabatas.
Okay, magpag-usapan na naman natin yan mamaya sa second round. But in the meantime, there's another, there are 3 more here na pwede nating sagutin muna. Basic questions about your candidacy. Isa sa mga trabaho ng isang senador ay yung tinatawag na oversight Kung bibigyan kayo ng pagkakataon, anong isang batas na sa tingin mo ay kailangang amyendahan o baguhin?
Lahat po ng batas natin na bukol sa ating ekonomiya. Ang ekonomiya natin po ay masyadong nakasandal dito sa tinatawag nating foreign investments. Isa pong sa amin po dito, isa pong paraan nito para makapasok po ang foreign investments at mawalan ng opportunities ang mga Filipino. No? At hindi naman po gumagawa ng magandang trabaho ang foreign investments. Pumapasok lang po yan, they loot our country, and then they leave the very next day without really generating jobs. No? We're going to have to look into that very closely. Yan po ang aming papasukan.
Okay.
And secondly, our country dito sa agriculture, no, we should not be dependent on importation of our food. No country can call itself a nation who cannot feed its own people. No? We must be able to produce our own food and not be dependent on import for our survival.
So very nationalistic, no? And in fact, in many ways, medyo left-leaning, no?
Well,
kasi nationalization of...
you can call it nationalism, but I think it is much more commonsensical, no? That if you call yourself a nation, you must be able to feed yourself. No? Whether it is ideological or not, I'm not in any connection with any ideology, but it is common sense, no? That you don't depend on another country for your survival.
All right. Okay. Okay. Busin natin yan. Magbigay po ng 2 panukalang batas na ihahain ninyo sakaling kayo ay manalo.
Well, sa akin po, unang-una, ihingin po natin i-review itong EPIRA law. Number 1, yan po. No? The EPIRA law is debilitating to our people's lives. No? We must review it and repeal it if it is necessary.
Nationalization din ba ang habol ninyo dyan?
Well, this is the point. We have energy or electricity, no, is a public utility. And the public must be the first beneficiary of this whole effort of government. By the fact that they have transferred it to the private sector, and more to the oligarchy, has relegated the public as secondary to this whole effort. No? Mali po yan in terms of priority. Public utilities must first benefit the public before the private sector.
Okay.
Number 2 po, itong sovereignty issue, it's very important. We must be able to know and choose our own leaders properly without interference from any foreign agency, foreign individual. It seems that Smartmatic is owned by George Soros, no? And Mark Malloch Brown. No? These are individuals who are internationally known to be regime changers. No? Okay. And yet we accommodate them in our whole electoral process.
Unang bahagi pa lamang po yan ang ating pagkilatis kay Professor Antonio Butch Valdes sa aming pagbabalik. Round 2 ng kanyang job interview. Diyan lamang po kayo. At nagbabalik po ang aplikante sa Senado at kasama pa rin po natin si Professor Antonio Butch Valdes. Sa round 2 ng usapan ngayon, follow-up po sa inyong mga nabanggit na.
Yes.
No? EPIRA, sinasabi nyo nga na napakataas ng rates ngayon na binabayaran ng consumer, no? At hindi dapat isinapribado ang mga pag-aari ng generator ng power,
The whole
yes, the whole
sector.
thing, no?
Yeah.
Ang kaso, sabi nga po nila, kaya nga po nag-EPIRA kasi napatunayan nga na napaka-inefficient ng gobyerno. Yung napaka talagang lugmok sa utang.
Una, gusto ko lang i-correct yung impression that Napocor was laden with debt. No. Napocor was not laden with debt at all. No. It got laden with debt when President Ramos started transferring what he was guaranteeing, no, for power generators to put here into Napocor's debt. Since all of that power generation coming from foreign debt is transferred to Napocor, then Napocor is no longer efficient because it's laden with debt. So it had to be privatized. No? And so all of the assets of Napocor had to be privatized. And this
because
debt,
it was an emergency situation back then, remember?
yeah, I know. But you see, the emergency, I have my doubts about this emergency situation.
Also.
It's like the tail wagging the dog, you know. You create the conditions for it. If I wanted to set up a takeover of the whole power corporations, I can withdraw budgets and create the condition.
What do you mean, as president?
I'm not saying as president. It could be government. It could be people in government. I can withdraw it, no, and then allow these things to malfunction, and then create a brownout system, and you've got now the society asking for a change.
Okay,
you see?
Yun nga eh, when we
done.
listen to you, parang marami nagsasabi na may pagka-conspiracy theorist kayo. Parang sinasabi nyo in effect, if I want to, if they wanted to,
Yes.
if they wanted to.
Yes.
So it's all theory, no, na maaring ganun na nangyari. But of course, that's not what most people also recognize na totoo naman talaga yung emergency crisis, no, yung energy crisis during that time. And
the crisis, again, like I said, it can be created. No?
so you believe that was created?
I believe that. Why is it that I come up with such conclusions? Because you study the process and not the events. No? You study how and who were the beneficiaries of this whole process. No? Now,
But
talking
the
about
energy
conspiracies,
crisis was, if it was in fact created, sinong gumawa nun?
who were the beneficiaries?
Nung nag-energy crisis,
when-
kulang na sa power. Yun ang sinasabi nga. So they had to generate power.
Yeah, but who were the real beneficiaries of that situation? When we privatized, when we passed the APIRA law, who were the beneficiaries?
Sinasabi nyo nga, yung mga kapitalista,
Well,
yung mga foreigners.
in
na
combination with people in government, right? Now, let's not define names, but look at what had happened. Then you know something was done. And subsequent to that was our own power situation deteriorating, actually deteriorating in terms of the conditions. But
Even now,
nevertheless,
you believe that the APIRA law is not working?
it's
Will you repeal it?
APIRA
you
law is
became
working not
senator?
for the people. It's working for certain corporations.
So anong
Maybe
gagawin
about
nyo
8
pag naging
corporations.
senador kayo?
I want a review of the APIRA law.
So it's not a repeal.
If it needs to be repealed, it should be repealed.
Anong gagawin? Gagawin ng government ulit?
Well, yes. You see, owning the first of all, the power generation, transmission, and the distribution, right? These are all now privately owned. And every time you transfer, there is a high cost transferred. And the one that pays all of that is the consumer, right? Do you know that the rise in electricity rates in the past 20 years internationally is 46%. But the rise in electricity rates in the past 20 years in the Philippines is 460%. And all because of the APIRA law.
So 10
There is
times.
something wrong. There is something wrong. And that translates, if 25% of the income of the ordinary Filipino goes to power costs and electricity costs, there is something wrong. And it will translate into mortalities, deaths, because that means they have to sacrifice part of their income in food and health. Okay,
May pagka-extreme, sabi nga nila, may pagka-worst case scenario po ang inyong mga pinangahawakan ninyong prinsipyo, no? Halimbawa, sa inyong mga statements, sinasabi nyo that we are now facing our worst financial economic crisis in history. Tapos meron kayong in an effort to prevent World War III, ganyan, no? May pagka end of the world scenario nga, sabi nga nila. And yet, Meron kayong prinsipyo na we have to be a friend to all nations,
Yes.
an enemy to
Of
none.
Yes.
Oo. Tapos ayaw nyo rin ng import lib,
Yes.
at ayaw nyo rin ng foreign direct investment. So,
That's right.
paano nyo po pinagtatagni-tagni yung parang
I don't see any contradiction with what I'm saying.
Oh.
Do you see any contradiction?
Well, yes, in many ways.
Yes,
because
please-
when you
please
say
show
na,
me the contradiction
when you
of
say,
what I'm saying.
halimbawa na gawing government yan, so you're saying in effect, kami na lang to, wag na kayong sumama, kahit wala kaming kapital, gagawa namin ng paraan.
Hindi, ganito kasi.
Import lib, halimbawa.
Hindi, muna. Let's stop
yes.
about, kahit wala kaming kapital. This is an onerous statement also. No? The government has all the capital. It can
Where
generate
will it get the
capital.
revenue? Kung
No.
walang...
You see,
It's more tax,
for example,
right?
no, if it is foreign investment, right? A foreign infrastructure that you not infrastructure in energy and water and whatever else. That is an investment. It is not an ordinary expense. No? Therefore, your collection of taxes must not pay for your investment.
Yeah.
Therefore, that can be loaned. You can borrow it from other countries on a country-to-country basis, not necessarily from a commercial loan basis. What is happening, however, a lot of our loans are being borrowed from on a commercial loan basis. And only some of that is going into ODA accounts. ODAs
Yes.
are 30 years, 40 years to pay.
Official
On the other
Development
hand,
Assistance,
why is
yes.
this the case? Because it is private sector that is being given the projects, and the private sector cannot borrow ODAs.
So you would rather, sa inyo, mas mabuti ng mangutang sa mga gobyerno mismo at
Yes.
hindi sa mga pribadong bangko.
Yes,
Okay.
for infrastructure. No? Kasi ang infrastructure, ang benefits nito is maybe 5, 10, 20 years from now. That is why they have moratoriums, they have grace periods of 10 years and 15 years. That is why it is like that. But if you go on a commercial loan basis, wala ka ng ganyan. Pero may kontrata yung privado sector, may kontrata yung oligarch.
Okay. Ngayon, maiba po tayo, no? Kasi konti lang ang panahon, sayang. Pero sinasabi nyo rin na kayo po ay sang-ayon sa partnership with China and Russia, halimbawa, na non-traditional, sabihin na natin, allies ng Pilipinas, if at all they can be called real allies, no? Pero ngayon, kayo po ay sinusuportahan ninyo itong China diplomacy policy ng government. So, paano nyo na naman ipagtatagni yun dito
yun?
sa pagka-nationalistic ninyo?
No.
Na amin
Sovereignty
to,
is sovereignty. You have to differentiate being nationalist and being pro-sovereignty. You are a sovereign nation state.
Yes.
You must not be influenced by the intervention of any sovereign superpower. No? What has been happening to us before was that we were no longer a sovereign state. We thought we had a democracy. We were thinking that we were independent. It's nice to hear. But the strings were so tight being held on to by the United States or the agencies in the United States or the foreign banks. What had happened, however, was when Duterte came out, whether he knew it or not, in his own style, he cursed Obama. And what had happened there was Obama retaliated and he says, I'm not going to give you aid. If you don't give us aid, I'm going to get it from somebody else. And this is what happened. But I like that because it asserted our sovereignty, you see. Not nationalism, our sovereignty as a nation. We are a people.
All right. Hindi pa po tapos ang job interview ni Professor Butch Valdes at sa aming pagbabalik, final round na po tayo. Ito po ang aplikante sa Senado. Nagbabalik po ang aplikante sa Senado at kasama pa rin po natin si Professor Antonio Butch Valdes. Sa huling bahagi ng aming tanungan, may 10 tanong kami na tatanong sa inyo at meron po kayong 2 minuto para sagutin.
Lahat ng 10 tanong.
Yes, so 1 short word or 1 short sentence. Okay, unang tanong, who is Butch Valdes in 1 word?
Filipino.
A subject or course that you think should be made mandatory for students?
Science.
What do you think is the best investment to make?
Energy.
Magbigay po ng 3 kumakandidato ngayon ng senador na hindi po dapat manalo.
Si Mar Rojas. Si Enrile.
Ako, sayang sir, mauubos oras
Kayo
niyo.
tano.
Okay. First word that comes to your mind when you hear the name Rodrigo Duterte.
First word, matapang.
Sa mga maiiwan sa Senado, sino sa tingin mo ang pinaka makakasundo mo kung manalo ka?
Manny Pacquiao.
Okay. Magbigay ng isang bagay na only in the Philippines.
Electoral fraud.
Isang pangyayaring iyong pinagsisisihan.
Dapat noon pa kami lumaban.
Complete the sentence. Ang politika sa Pilipinas ay...
Masalimuot.
Okay. Maraming salamat po sa inyo, Professor Antonio
Thank
Butch
you.
Valdes. Hindi po biro ang trabahong kanilang ina-applyan dahil sa kanilang kamay nakasalalay ang kapakanan ng bayan. Samahan niyo po akong kilalanin ng bawat aplikante sa Senado dahil bilang Pilipino, tungkulin nating alamin ang karapat-dapat na iboto. Ako po si Luchi Cruz-Valdes. Magandang gabi sa inyong lahat. Alright, thank you. Ngayong gabi, isang aplikante sa pagkasenador ang haharap sa matinding job interview. Ako si Luchi Cruz-Valdes at ang aplikante sa gabing ito ay si...
Antonio Butch Valdes, ipinanganak noong January 20, 1947 sa Maynila. Nagtapos ng kursong Liberal Arts and Commerce, major in Political Science and Accounting sa De La Salle University, Manila. May master's degree sa management mula sa Asian Institute of Management. Certified Public Accountant at Ekonomista. Naging Undersecretary ng Nooy Department of Education, Culture and Sports at Honorary Consul ng Pilipinas sa Portugal. Kabilang din siya sa mga nagtatag ng Chamber of Filipino Entrepreneurs at Citizen National Guard.
Okay, magandang gabi po